Okay, I'm back.
For authors, filmmakers, entertainment, and all your listening needs. Listen now to Talk Now Radio, where no topic is taboo.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talk Now Radio. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man. And joining me tonight, or this evening rather, is going to be Mac Maloney. And he wants to talk to you about a couple of books that he's recently come out with, pretty close to each other, that's on very similar subjects. One of them is Beyond Area 51, and the other is Attack on Area 51. And these books are just recently come to my attention, or rather, that's what I'm trying to say. So I'm going to be learning a little bit about this here tonight as the show goes on. If y'all want to learn more about Mac, you can go to his website at www.macmahoney.wordpress.com. And I do believe he has his own show, but I don't have that show name in front of me, so I'll get it from him here in just a moment. But I do know he has his own show. Me and him were just talking about it a few minutes ago. Also, if y'all want to call in and ask questions, the number is 832-632-7904. And if y'all are listening at YouTube or iTunes or somewhere you'd like to visit us live, go to www.talknowradio.com. I would love to see y'all in the chat room. I get pretty lonely in my chat room during live show, folks. It's great to have you listening to the archives, but it's a lot of fun to chat, so please come join us. So, Mac, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, Royce. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I think I mentioned to you, I caught your name and the title of your book when Nick was mentioning you on Facebook, and, well, it just caught my interest, and I just had to get a hold of you, in other words.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad you did.
Now, I wanted to ask you before I forgot, what was the name of your radio show?
It's called Mac Maloney's Military X-Files Show. We're on every, Wednesday night, 7:30 to 9 o'clock on kgraradio.com.
Now, this sounds like it's a pretty unique type of show to me. Y'all talk, mostly about military topics or military conspiracy or...
Mm-hmm. Yep, just about everything. We talk about a whole wide range of UFO topics, but we try to center on military aspects of the UFO phenomenon. We have pilots on, fighter pilots, pilots who fly for the government, airline pilots. We alter their voice and we give them kind of code names, and they tell us about UFO sightings that they've had. As you know, a lot of, all military pilots, are barred from talking about UFO sightings in public. And airline pilots don't make public any kind of UFO sightings because it really doesn't do well for them when they want to get a promotion. So we have these two groups of people. They're always highly trained, military pilots and airline pilots. They're the best observers of UFOs that we have because they do so much flying, they know the difference between, Venus or, some kind of a cloud formation and a true UFO. So when they see a true UFO, then it is a true UFO, but they can't tell anyone. So occasionally we get them on our show, and they're able to tell people that way.
Okay, so in a sense, you might say you've got an insight to some of the people in the military that can tell a little something about this. You just can't... You have to hide the names to protect the innocence, as the FBI used to say.
Right. And we alter their voices, too, because, they're really kind of taking a chance talking to us on the air. So we alter their voices. We give them code names. We make sure that it would be very difficult for anyone to actually find out who they are. And, when we lay out kind of the ground rules to them and they understand it, they come on. To tell you the truth, most of them, all of them so far have been friends of mine, people that I've known for quite a while. So they trust that we'll keep their names and their identities out of it, so they're a little more open
You've been around long enough to earn trust, in other words.
Right, yes, exactly.
Which that's a good thing. Which leads me to another question, which is really not exactly in your book, but I recently had Lynn Caston on. As you know, he had that book out about Journey to Planet Circle. Well, I say, I'm assuming, being an author and being in UFOlogy, that I would assume you'd have probably caught wind of it, in other words. But what I'm saying is, in it he writes about the DIA being involved in Project Serpo. I wondered if you just happen to know of any of the people that worked with Project Serpo or not.
No, I don't, and I'm not really familiar with that particular project. I know that the DIA and the CIA and all of the various military intelligence organizations and the U.S. military themselves, I know that they know more about UFOs than they're letting on. I can be sure of that. And but the funny thing is that it takes a long time to write one of these books, and usually I'm spending so much time writing, I don't have very much time to read anything else, if you know what I mean.
Well, between that and a radio show, you had help with a radio station. I think you were telling me. I do all the promotion, the finding the guests, and checking the material, promoting it, and everything myself. So yeah, I can kind of see with just the radio show alone, much less the writing the book and the books I read, how busy you must actually be. You must be, very much close to as busy as I am, if not a little busier.
Well, it's a lot of typing, I can tell you that.
Yeah, I can imagine. Now, matter of fact, speaking of a lot of typing, before we go into these two books, you were telling me, and what I've noticed it from Amazon, you've written some 40-odd books. You want to give everybody kind of a quick briefing? Because, these are like before you started doing nonfiction work. You got this huge body out there that I'm sure you'd like to, people to know about it, because even if it ain't nonfiction, fiction work, a lot of people love the entertainment. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they'd love to know a little something about it.
Well, I started writing full-time more than 20 years ago. I was working for General Electric at the time, and I just had an opportunity to help someone write a book. And when we finished that book, I had an opportunity to kind of pitch my own books. And the first book I pitched to a publisher was this series called Wingman. This is back in the late 80s, and Wingman is a story about a fighter pilot who is kind of like the best fighter pilot who's ever lived. His airplane is an F-16. It's like his own personal hot rod, and he's just the best flyer, the best dogfighter, the best person who's ever got into an airplane. And the story was it went for 16 books. It sold about 1 million books between 1987 and 1999. And it was about, after World War III, how the Russians took over the United States, and Wingman and his allies are constantly fighting to get America back to where it was before World War III. So a lot of people really liked the books, and they went away for a while. I wrote 16 of them, and I went on to do other things. But just recently, in June, we got to deal with another publisher. So all the original books are coming back out as ebooks and as physical books. And I was also able to write book 17, which is called Attack on Area 51. So I have two books out about Area 51 at the same time. So Attack on Area 51 is a $2 download from Amazon.com. And this book we're talking about tonight, Beyond Area 51, is at, bookstores everywhere.
Now, is there a difference between Attack on Area 51 and Beyond Area 51 in subject matter?
Yes. Beyond Area 51, the whole idea was, when I talked to my editor about it for the first time, which is probably now about a year and a half ago, or even more, there was a lot of Area 51 books on the market at the time. So I said, why don't we do a book about Area 51 that really doesn't mention Area 51? And so that's how we got this idea that we would talk about these places around the world that are like Area 51, but we don't really concentrate on Area 51 very much. But it's only because I had asked someone who I knew years ago who had actually been out to Area 51 a couple of times. I asked them if there are other places like Area 51 out in the Nevada desert, and they said, yeah, Area 51 is kind of like the most famous secret base in the world. You know what I mean? Everyone knows about Area 51, but there are other places out there in the Nevada desert and also throughout the American Southwest that people never hear of. And, they do lots of secret work at these places. And each one of them seems to have some kind of a UFO history to it. So he liked the idea, so we put the nonfiction book, Beyond Area 51, together, and it talks about, I think, 16 or 17 places around the world, like Area 51, but all with this kind of UFO connection. Attack on Area 51, I had this opportunity to continue the Wingman series, and the publisher said, well, you can, do a new book, but you can place it anywhere you want. You can write anything, write it or put the location anywhere you want. And I had all this Area 51 material in my office, so I thought, well, I'll just do it in Area 51. Why not? So it's about Hawk Hunter, who is the Wingman. He's constantly kind of trying to find out the secret to why he has this great flying ability, and he finds out that the secret to it is actually buried underneath Area 51. So he and his friends fly out to Area 51, and they try to uncover the secret, and they find all these kind of bad guys in a huge underground chamber underneath Area 51, and they have this little wall beneath the desert floor. So that's what Attack on Area 51 is about, and a lot of people who are Wingman fans are happy that we came out with a new book, and a lot of people seem to like it.
Okay. Now, you was mentioning about these places all around, other places around Nevada and other places as well. I've read about there was places like this in the Mojave Desert. Are you familiar with anywhere there?
Well, I know that there's I think it's called the Duggan Proving Grounds, and there's a place called, of course, Edwards Air Force Base is where they test a lot of experimental airplanes. In fact, Area 51 is just an extension of Edwards Air Force Base, which is in California. But probably the most secret place that people may not have heard of that is in the Nevada Weapons Testing Ground, which is a huge part of Nevada, which is a no-fly zone, and of course civilians can't go into it. About 100 miles north of Area 51 is this place called Tonopah. It's a very small city. It's about halfway between Las Vegas and Reno. And there's an air base close by there that very few people know about. In fact, that's where the stealth fighter was tested and flown out of Tonopah Air Force Base for 10 years without anyone knowing it. The only people who knew about it were the people who were flying it, the top people in the U.S. Air Force, and the president. In fact, the president had to sign a decree every time the stealth fighter, they wanted the stealth fighter to fly over the border from Nevada to California. Very, very secret. Everyone who lived out there kept this secret for 10 years. And then when the stealth fighter moved on, Tonopah Air Force Base, it stayed open, and something else moved in there, something highly secret. We don't know what it is, but whatever it is, they're working on it as we speak out there. So Tonopah Air Force Base, or Tonopah Testing Ground is what they call it. It's a very, very secret place, and I have some friends in the U.S. intelligence business who helped me put this book together, and one of them told me, they said, people in the intelligence business, we talk about Area 51 all the time, but no one ever talks about Tonopah.
Yeah, I knew a CIA operative that's been on my show once. He mentioned to me that you'd be surprised what people knew about UFOs. What about some of your friends on the inside? Do they indicate that there is, in fact, a government cover-up on UFOs of some kind?
The only cover-up really is that they don't know any more about UFOs than we do. The U.S. military, they probably, they definitely have more evidence of UFOs. I know that they have distinct photographs and film and so on and so forth, and they've had this stuff in their possession for years, 50 or more years. But they don't know. No one knows what UFOs are. Certainly, no one in the U.S. military, the U.S. government know what they are. They're just as much a mystery to them as they are to us. So the cover-up really is, the Defense Department, the military is in charge of protecting this country from all kinds of threats. And they know, we know what some of the threats are. Let's say, in the past it was the Russians and, now probably the Chinese or whatever. And, those things they're kind of easy to understand, and you know what the threat level is. But when it comes to UFOs, you have no idea what they are and you have no idea what the threat level is. So that's what they're keeping from us, the fact that they don't know exactly what UFOs are, therefore they can't protect us from them.
That'd be pretty scary, wouldn't it? People would live in like constant total wrecks, you would think, if they knew that, or at least a certain swath of the people would.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, that's the thing, too, is that a lot of people think, well, if the government knew what UFOs were, they tell us. There's a lot of people who believe that it would be kind of like the end of civilization as we know it, because, first of all, it would put a lot of the Earth's religions in jeopardy, because a lot of them are just based on, events that have happened here on Earth. So for instance, what does the Christian religion mean if, there are people or beings living on other planets or in other parts of the universe? A lot of people, like Winston Churchill, for instance, he was shown a picture of a UFO during World War II. They called them Foo Fighters back then. He was shown a very clear, distinct picture of a UFO that was following a British bomber. And he said, I don't want this photograph to be made public for 50 years, because he believed that it would be the end of all religion, and he thought that religion was the foundation of civilization. He was convinced that if we didn't have any religion on this planet, then the civilization would go down the drain. And that photograph was later destroyed. So there's a thought throughout, in the UFO community, as you probably know, that, maybe if the government actually knew that there were beings in outer space, they wouldn't tell us. But I think that's a little bit different than knowing what UFOs are. UFOs may not be space travelers at all. They could very easily be time travelers.
So the government does know there's something. They just can't technically identify it if it's interdimensional, time-based, extraterrestrial, or what, and they don't want anybody else to know. They can't identify it either. That's still, you would think, wouldn't you, that it would have to cause a certain amount of concern within the government to not be able to prepare for an attack?
Well, we know that UFOs are, just from the kind of technology and the expertise that they show in the way that they fly, that they must be, if they are entities from somewhere else, then they are obviously much more highly technologically advanced than us. So how do you prepare for an attack from something like that? I don't think they would know where to start.
I would imagine. I know I wouldn't know where to start. That's what would cause me to have a certain amount of concern. I mean, I wouldn't just bring the whole world to an end, but I would think it had to be somewhere in the back of my mind wondering about it from time to time.
Well, yeah. I mean, a good example is in kind of a depressing example is, what happened to the Native Americans, in our own country. I mean, they lived here for hundreds of years and, really had no knowledge of anyone living anywhere else. And then all of a sudden, Europeans show up on their shore, and that was basically the beginning of the end of the civilization as they knew it. The same thing could very well happen to us.
Only from extraterrestrial sources, right, or interdimensional sources, or, one of the other places, in other words. And
right.
I'd venture a guess to say you're absolutely right. I don't see anything from stopping it. I mean, let's just say we were to pretend for a moment that we'd never been visited, there'd never been no sightings, and we had no reason to believe anything was amiss. We would still have no guarantee that next year, the year after, somebody on another planet not far away didn't master the technology, and next thing you know, they're at our front door and they're here to take over. So, even when you just think of it that way, what guarantee does anybody have?
Well, there's no guarantee. That's the thing. There's no guarantee. Just like the American Indians had no guarantee that, that they could, let's say, survive, peacefully coexist with the Europeans, and as more and more people came here gradually from Europe, they just put an end to the Indian civilization.
Okay, well, let's go back to beyond Area 51. I kind of let us drift away from that, and I do apologize, but that was kind of an interesting track for me. I was going to say, you're telling us that this book goes into some detail about some of the other areas. Now, I think before the show started, you were telling me that this lists government installations, secret installations, here and abroad as well.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, there are places, a lot of the places we deal with, it's both in the U.S. and around the world. And most of them are military bases. Some of them are just places where very strange things happen. For instance, Tonopah Air Force Base talked about as an example of a military. In the southwest corner of Colorado, there's a place called the St. Louis Valley, which happens to be surrounded by military bases. Military bases all around. But strange things happen. I mean, people go all the time. But they also see a lot of paranormal activity there. There's a lot of things that people call shadow. You being shadow on your wall. There's no one there casting. Strange animals. A lot of and a lot of things like flying humans. I mean, as strange as this, people have reported seeing humans flying. And these are people like fire department people. There are no one going around, and it's funny. It's just going back to the American for a second. Hundreds of years ago, the St. Louis Valley, a holy place for two Indian nations, which is very rare. They would come there to have their vision, also to, and it's a very strange place that a lot of various things happen, and it just happens to be practically surrounded. So what it all means, no one really knows, but we report on all these things that happen there. We can let the reader figure it out for themselves.
Okay, now, pardon my asking this, but are you by any chance moving your head quite a bit, sometimes close, sometimes not so close to your microphone?
No, let me try this. Is that...
I think you started to say something and you got cut off.
Okay, how's that sound?
We can try that. I think it's a little better. You were breaking up during most of that, so I didn't know if you was having difficulty or if you was moving your head, in other words.
No, I will say this, since I've done these two UFO and a lot of interviews like this, I've had a lot of interference on the phone while I'm doing interviews, as we're doing over Skype right now. And I'm someone who really believes in a lot of conspiracy theories, and there's a lot of really wacky having to UFOs. But I can tell you that I've had trouble doing interviews many times since writing these UFO books, and it only happens when I'm talking about UFOs. On the phone, talking about anything else, I never have a phone. But when I'm talking about UFOs, the phone will go dead, or I'll hear a lot of static, or my voice went out. I actually had a friend of mine who I worked with, tell me that, that my phone was like that. And as strange as that sounds, and as it is for me to tell you that, we only have indication that someone might be listening on our phone, which is very strange.
Which, if that's happening, this whole show could get broke up.
Well, I hope it's not breaking up now. Still, is it?
Well, it was, a little bit after you did whatever it was you did.
Okay.
I don't know if it's that. I don't know if it's Skype, or I know if you use Skype for an interview, you usually have to have at least 4 gigabytes of processing speed. I don't know what you got, but I know that a slow computer can also cause it to do it.
Well, we do have on this computer, so we do have. Here's the funny thing: is when we're doing the radio show that I was just talking about, we never have any problems doing the show. We any of breakups or anything like that. When I'm talking, when I'm out interviewed about the books, that's the interference always seems to stop. And we just really can't figure it out. I don't have any problems with our computers, but when I'm talking about these books, something always seems to go wrong. So I don't know what to change.
Well, I tell you what, if you want to try to call me back at 832-632-7904 from your landline, we can see if the landline does it too.
I mean, are we breaking it now still?
You didn't just now. If you want to continue to try, we can do that.
Let's try. Okay, why don't we keep trying?
Okay. Going back to your book then once again. Are these kind of like in-depth analysis of what goes on at each base? Because I feel confident each one has its own separate agenda. Am I correct?
Right. But we don't really get into that because to tell you the truth, that a lot of these secret bases they do stuff that may be fascinating to people in the business, but a lot of it really is just primary testing of classified weapons, some of which we will know about in the future, many of which we won't, because for every 10 secret weapons that are tested, only one of them actually goes into production. For instance, at Area 51, I know that a lot of people, have a lot of opinions about what really happens out there. But I mean, what they really do out there is that they test, for instance, our new spy planes will be tested from there. In the past, they had captured Russian jet fighters that they used to fly out of there and just to kind of see what kind of technology the Russians were using at any particular time. There's probably some kind of hypersonic airplane that is being operated out of Area 51 now, something that might go as fast as 5,000 to 6,000 miles an hour. So, I mean, they do a lot of legitimate secret weapon testing at these places, and that sounds fascinating for the first couple of paragraphs, but then it gets pretty dry. So what we do is, as I said before, it just seems like a lot of these secret bases and secret places have some kind of UFO history. So we really kind of tell the story of the base, tell the story of the UFO history and how they might be connected.
Okay. Which, Area 51, was that one of the older, bases for that type of installation here in the U.S.?
Well, the thing about Area 51 is people are always fascinated by how it got its name, but there's really nothing really special about its name. What happened was in the late 40s, when the Atomic Energy Commission knew that they needed some place to test nuclear weapons, the Nevada desert, as you know, is just vast. It just goes on and on forever, and there's nothing out there. So the Atomic Energy Commission simply divided up the desert in Nevada into areas, and then they went from Area 1 to Area 85 or something. And so then a few years later, when the CIA wanted to find a place where they could test a secret weapon aircraft, which turned out to be the U-2 spy plane, they asked the Atomic Energy Commission to use one of these blocks of land that they had designated, and the one they found that had the best, it had a dry lake bed, so it was kind of a runway that went on forever, and it was isolated, and the section that they selected just happened to be Area 51. So Area 51 it's certainly our first modern secret base that the United States has built. There may have been other secret bases, earlier, but they weren't quite as exotic as Area 51 is.
Okay. Well, is there any such place as Hangar 18 we've all heard about?
Well, I've heard about Hangar 18 too, but once again, it's before I wrote these UFO books, I was someone who I always loved UFOs. I was reading UFO books as a kid, and I wanted to believe everything I read, but when you kind of sit down and have to do it in let's say, a serious manner, and you're getting paid to do it, by a publisher, and you have to really look to things, you find out that a lot of the stories out there are, let's say less than 7:30 to 9 o'clock on kgraradio.com.
Now, this sounds like it's a pretty unique type of show to me. Y'all talk, mostly about military topics or military conspiracy or...
Mm-hmm. Yep, just about everything. We talk about a whole wide range of UFO topics, but we try to center on military aspects of the UFO phenomenon. We have pilots on, fighter pilots, pilots who fly for the government, airline pilots. We alter their voice and we give them kind of code names, and they tell us about UFO sightings that they've had. As you know, a lot of all military pilots, are barred from talking about UFO sightings in public, and airline pilots don't make public any
attack on Area 51. And these books just recently come to my attention, to my attention, or rather, that's what I'm trying to say. So I'm going to be learning a little bit about this here tonight as the show goes on. If y'all want to learn more about Mac, you can go to his website at www.macmahoney.wordpress.com. And I do believe he has his own show, but I don't have that show name in front of me, so I'll get it from him here in just a moment. But I do know he has his own show. Me and him were just talking about it a few minutes ago. Also, if y'all want to call in and ask questions, the number is 832-632-7904. And if y'all are listening at YouTube or iTunes or somewhere you'd like to visit.
Okay, I'm back.
For authors, filmmakers, entertainment, and all your listening needs. Listen now to Talk Now Radio, where no topic is taboo.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talk Now Radio. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man. And joining me tonight, or this evening rather, is going to be Mac Maloney. And he wants to talk to you about a couple of books that he's recently come out with, pretty close to each other, that's on very similar subjects. One of them is Beyond Area 51. And the other is
kind of UFO sightings, because it really doesn't do well for them when they want to get a promotion. So we have these two groups of people. They're always highly trained, military pilots and airline pilots. They're the best observers of UFOs that we have, because they do so much flying. They know the difference between, Venus or, some kind of a cloud formation and a true UFO. So when they see a true UFO, then it is a true UFO, but they can't tell anyone. So occasionally we get them on our show, and they're able to tell people that way.
Okay, so in a sense, so you might say you've got an insight to some of the people in the military that can tell a little something about this. You just can't, you have to hide the names to protect the innocence, as the FBI used to say.
Right. And we alter their voices too, because, they're really kind of taking a chance.
It is live. Go to www.talknowradio.com. I would love to see y'all in the chat room. I get pretty lonely in my chat room during live show, folks. It's great to have you listening to the archives, but it's a lot of fun to chat, so please come join us. So, Mac, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, Royce. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I think I mentioned to you, I caught your name and the title of your book when Nick was mentioning you on Facebook, and well, it just caught my interest, and I just had to get a hold of you, in other words.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad you did.
Now, I wanted to ask you before I forgot, what was the name of your radio show?
It's called Mac Maloney's Military Exile Show. We're on every, Wednesday night.